Viewers, welcome back to the show. Before the break, we're talking about superannuation, your rights and entitlements. Now, Sarah, these claims, usually what happens is the information for a particular claim is collected by a fund manager. What's that?
Tony, a fund manager is the company that looks at the claim. So they gather all the information on behalf of the insurer, they do a general assessment and then send it off to the insurer to determine whether or not a person meets the policy definition.
But then, Don, the person that makes the decision on whether you're entitled to your benefit is the trustees. What do they generally do?
Well, they'll assess the claim as well, Tony. So I'll get all the work, the recommendations from the insurer, and then I'd accept it and pay out the benefits, or refer it back to the insurer and say, well, look at this angle, look at that. So it's really a two-step process. You've got the insurer and then a trustee.
Actually, it could be 3 steps, because you could have the fund manager, you could have the insurer and the trustees. Isn't that correct?
That's correct, Tony.
And at the end, the people that are relevant in terms of a policy are the trustees. They could basically ignore what the other two say.
That's right, and quite often if an insurer is set in their ways but haven't actually looked at certain parts of material, the trustee will refer it back. The trustee's duties basically, Tony, are to review all the material and then acting in good faith and acting reasonably in looking at all the material. So not to the exclusion of just one report and focusing on that in making a determination.
Viewers, we're going to go to some cases. Don, tell us the facts of Maglemont.
Maglemont was a banker who sustained an injury. It's not quite clear what injury he sustained in the judgment, Tony, but he was a banker. He went from full-time to part-time and then took a voluntary redundancy after some time and couldn't get back to work and made a claim with the insurer for total and permanent disablement, and it was rejected and went to court. So this is a case as to whether or not he had a capacity to return to work and whether or not he satisfied the definition of total and permanent disablement.
And in that case, Sarah, he lost his case, didn't he?
He did lose in this instance, Tony, and the reason for that was because it was shown that he had a capacity for work, and in his own words, he told the fund that he believed he could work, he just wasn't able to find a position within his capabilities.
Well, the court shot him down based on his own words.
That's right, Tony.
He said that if I could find work, I'd be working. So in his own mind, he had a capacity to work, didn't he?
That's right.
And Tony, he took the voluntary redundancy, and in the request, when the redundancies came out, he said he wanted to be redeployed. So he showed he had a capacity to work. And then after redundancy, like Sarah said, he tried to get work and couldn't get the work because it wasn't available. It wasn't because of his injuries, it was because it wasn't available. So look, in that instance, the court said, unfortunately, it doesn't satisfy the test of total and permanent disablement.
Sarah, this is a classic case where you need legal advice, isn't it?
Absolutely, Tony. I don't think a lot of people realise that any information that is given to the fund and insurer can be taken and construed against you. So it's really, really crucial that people get legal advice in these matters. As we've said earlier, it is not just a matter of lodging a claim and they will pay out. There is a strict policy that has to be met, and it's very black and white. You either meet it or you don't. And sadly, people don't realise this. A lot of the times when they do win or lose, it's based on what comes out of their mouth. Is that correct? That's right, Tony. You can inadvertently say something which you think is helping your case, but given the policy definition and previous case decisions, may be completely adverse to the claim that you're making. Don, a lot of people make innocuous comments, but sadly they're held against them. And unlike the criminal law where the police give you a warning in advance, whatever you say may be used against you, they're not given this warning in these instances. Is that correct? That's correct. And there's a lot of paperwork. Sarah, would you agree, in filling out forms, filling out this, answering questionnaires? So whatever you put down there will be used against you. Exactly. It's getting more and more difficult for people to do these claims, and it's so crucial that they seek legal advice. And also, viewers, there's a lot of cases where you might have 2, 3 or 4 policies you don't even know. So it's best to get some advice and then do some research. And there are ways of finding out how many policies you've actually got. So, if you consult a lawyer, they can put you in the right direction. Don, there's a fellow by the name of Sammy who sent a Facebook message in saying that the chances of getting injured or the need for these insurances is remote. But that's not exactly the case because, the stats these days are the incidence of cancer in the community
is 1 in 2 males in their lifetime and 1 in 3 females. So it's very, very high. So that's why you'd want a trauma cover, wouldn't you?
Well, that's correct. So it's not just injury caused by traumatic events, it's also illnesses, Tony. And I think in this community, I mean, we go out and get comprehensive motor vehicle insurance to pretty much insure a bundle of metal. Why wouldn't you insure the most important parcel that you have? And that's yourself, your bones and illnesses. So it doesn't make sense. I mean, I'm an advocate to get insurance. I took out insurance not long ago, went through the whole process, and you realise how important that is, not only to yourself, but if you've got a family as well. I mean, if something happens to myself, at least I know that I'm covered and my children are covered, my wife's covered and looked after.
And Sarah, people should get insurance when they're younger, where they don't have any conditions, because their insurance is a lot cheaper. And then if they develop problems down the track, it's very rare that they can hike up the policy. Is that correct? That's
right, Tony. When you take out policies and insurance while you're young, there's very rarely any medicals that you have to do. You don't have any conditions. You don't have That's correct. As cholesterol. You get older, they will make you sit a medical, and they will generally exclude any pre-existing conditions that you have. And it makes it quite difficult to then, if you have a heart attack that stops you working, but you've had a heart condition for 20 years, it does make it quite difficult to get that sort of insurance.
I want to talk about a case of Dargan, but very briefly. Who's going to give me the facts?
I'll give you the facts, Tony. In that case, a gentleman sustained a back injury while working. He was working as a removalist. He'd been doing that for 11 years, so truck driving and lifting, so labour work. As a result of the injury, he was unable to return to that form of work. He thereafter went and obtained his taxi licence and was working 15 to 20 hours a week. This matter went to court because the insurer rejected the claim. Don, did you want to?
Well, look, I think he went back, a very stoic bloke, went back, got his licence to drive taxi and went to return to work driving taxis. And the court said, had to consider.
He wasn't working full-time.
It was part-time, up to 20 hours. And the court said, well, look, in those circumstances, not total and permanent disablement. So even though at the time of the accident or injury, he was not working as a taxi driver, in fact, was not qualified to work as a taxi driver, but had the capacity to work as a taxi driver because he knew the road rules and could drive a car, he was held not to be total and permanent disablement.
So he lost his case.
So, Tony, it just goes to show that even if you've got a capacity, even if that's conditional upon something happening like further education or training, you still may not satisfy the test of total and permanent disablement. And again, we keep advocating you should seek legal advice when you're faced with these adversaries and you want to claim the type of coverage.
Sarah, is there anything else you want to add?
Look, I just think, as we've covered in this episode, and we'll keep saying, is that it's so crucial that people get their legal advice. The courts just aren't looking at whether or not you have an injury and therefore you get paid out. They're looking at, what you're reasonably qualified to do, what your transferable skills are. If you can drive a truck, why can't you drive a taxi? They're looking at all those things in making a determination, and so it's crucial that you seek legal advice in these matters.
And also your education and background are very important as well.
That's right.
Dom, thanks for coming on board. Sarah, you've been fantastic. I'm sure the viewers loved what you had to say.
Thanks, Tony.
And they'll be following you in the future. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Go to the website for any past episodes and the current episode. And always remember to stay safe.